Shalom, 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 my brothers and sisters of the nation of Israel, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. Welcome to another Savory Sunday where we do what? Break down the Most High's commandments and give our brothers and sisters a better understanding of the commandments than they had yesterday. So it's an honor, a privilege to be able to come before you as always to give you another edifying lesson, to uplift you in the spirit, to teach you something, to better help you as well as your nation of people. But before we get started, we want to give all honor, glory, praise to Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua. Yahweh being the Heavenly Father, Yahushua being his Son, who the world calls Christ. And through his strength, sacrifice, and example, we are all able to be here today as a family to be edified in the spirit. But nonetheless, welcome, my brothers and sisters, to another Savory Sunday. And the reason we call it Savory Sunday is because we want to be a sweet-smelling savor to the Most High by doing what? Being obedient, but most importantly, keeping the commandments and having faith in him and his Son. So we're going to start off with the book of Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 1. And once again, today's class is called Cry Unto the Lord. Cry unto the Lord. And we'll get into it as soon as I'm done reading this. All right. So this is the book of Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 1. It says, Be ye therefore followers of God as dear children, and walk in love as Christ also have loved us and have given himself for us an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet smelling savor. So we have to follow the Most High by the example that his Son came and laid before us. His Son came and he gave himself for us as an offering, a sacrifice unto God, as a sweet smelling savor, by following the commandments, being a righteous example, as we are commanded to be. So by him doing so, he was a sweet smelling savor to the Lord. So that's what we aim to do, to teach our brothers and sisters to do. Learn the commandments, keep the commandments, teach the commandments. So that we as a nation of people can stand up, rise up, and become a sweet smelling savor before the Lord, before our God, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. So as I was telling you earlier, today's class is going to be called Cry Out Unto the Lord. Cry out unto the Lord. Now, many times in our lives, we go through situations that we might not be able to explain or understand. But through this class, hopefully you'll have some more understanding as to how to deal with situations that come to you that you don't know how to deal with. It might be too frightening or even for somebody else. But nonetheless, you have to cry out unto the Lord. That's one thing that the Lord commands us to do as his children. As a father, when your child is in need, they have to cry out unto you. Sometimes you might not, as a father, see the things that they need. Or be actually, I ain't gonna say don't see the things that they need, but you're not what's the word I want to use? In tune as much as to what they go through on a day-to-day basis. But overall, generally speaking, you understand what your children need. I'm not saying that I'm on any type of level with the Most High, but I am a father. And I know that the Yahweh sees all and knows all. So he know what we go through, and he know what we need, and he know the overall picture as to what we need and what we will go through. I being only mortal man, I understand certain things, but I don't understand all things. Neither will I ever claim to know all things. But one thing about being in this truth that you will understand is that you have to cry unto the Lord. It's a commandment in your times of trials and tribulations, sickness, even in good times. You have to cry out unto the Lord. And a lot of our people do not know these things, and they go about worshiping or praying or talking to the Lord by how they have been taught by the oppressor, not fully understanding what it is that they're doing or why or how. So we aim to give our brothers and sisters some more edification tonight during this class with hopes and regards of enlightening you, edifying you, uplifting you in spirit, so you can help your brothers and sisters who don't know any better, and ultimately helping our nation grow. So We're going to go to the book of Psalms, chapter 50, verse 14. Bear with me. All right. Started Psalms 50, verse 15. It says, "And call upon me in the day of trouble, and I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me." This is in Psalms. This is a commandment. "And call upon me in the day of trouble, I will deliver thee." So in your day of trouble, you're supposed to call upon the Lord. Call upon him. What do our people do? We tend to seek others before going to the Most High. The Lord said, "Call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me." Meaning we're going to give praise and honor to him for his great works, his marvelous and great works. You know, let's go to Joel 2 and 32. The book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 32. Excuse me. It's going to be a short class, but meaningful nonetheless. The book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 32. And it reads, "And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord hath said, and in the remnant who the Lord shall call." So this is a cut to you Christians who say that whosoever believe on his son shall not perish. He's talking to the Israelites. This is the Old Testament. That whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord, the other nations don't know his name. His name is dreadful to the heathen. Understand that. His name is dreadful to them. Therefore, they will not speak his name. Understand that. But I'm going to read it again. The book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 32. "And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance. In Zion and Jerusalem shall be deliverance." Understand that. Not of the whole world, not in Egypt, but he said in Zion and Jerusalem, referring to the Israelites, the nation of Israel. Let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 18, verse 6. Psalms, chapter 18, verse 6. And it reads, "In my distress I called upon the Lord and cried out unto my God. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him, even into his ears." You see that? Once again, making reference, this is King David who wrote Psalm. He said, "In my distress," meaning in his trials and tribulation, "I called upon the Lord and cried out unto my Lord, unto my God. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him." Now, a lot of people will say, well, what is it? Was David sitting there crying with tears rolling down his face? That's not what it means, man. Even though sometimes you will go through situations that have tears rolling down your face. Excuse me. But bear with me. Let me do it this way. All right. We're going to look at cry, the definition of it, just to furthermore edify our brothers and sisters. We all heard of it before. Whether you're crying, you're boo-hooing, you're rubbing your eyes because you ain't getting your way. Let's read it and find out a true definition. This is the Merriam-Webster dictionary. It says cry, to utter loudly, meaning to shout. So when you in a time of trouble, you about to be put to death, you think you're going to sit there and boo-hoo with tears rolling down your eye and the Lord going to hear that? No. He said to utter loudly, to shout. Let's keep going down. Said to beg, to beseech, to proclaim publicly, to advertise. So when you crying out to the Lord, he's supposed to hear that. Just like if you was crying for somebody to save your life, your car getting ready to fall off the edge of the bridge or fall off the cliff. You think you're going to be sitting in there, "Somebody help me." No, you're going to be screaming out, "Lord, save me. Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, save me." That's what you're going to be saying. Crying out to the Lord. Help thy fellow servant. The apple of thine eye. Says to call out loudly, shout. Another form of it would be to shed tears, often noisily, to weep, to sob, to utter a characteristic sound or call, to require or suggest strongly a remedy or a disposition. You see that? Let's go on down. See what else we got on here. An instance of crying, articulate utterance of distress, rage, or pain, an outcry, a proclamation. You see that? An appeal, a loud shout. So when we crying out to the Lord, we got to cry and make it known that we in trouble, that we need him, that we in distress, that we really crying upon him. You know, it's not a regular just a prayer when you in your space and you facing the east, you're on your knees with your hands spread toward the heavens, praying to the Most High. You crying out to the Lord for him to save you in your distress. And it said, he heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him, even into his ears. You see that? You have to call upon the Lord. These are commandments. That's why we're doing this class, because a lot of our people don't know these things. As soon as they get into any type of trouble, they picking up the cell phone. They looking on the internet. They looking at Google. The Lord said, call upon me in your times of trouble, tribulation, in your distress. But our people are not told these things, nor do they know. They sitting there, Lord, please give me some more butter, bean, peas, whatever the case may be. You know, you got to cry out to the Lord for him to hear you. Just like your child. Your child, if they hurt, they going through something, they going to holler out. They going to let you know they in pain and they need your help. Even the animals will do it. So why don't we do it? Because we have not been taught these things. We've been taught how to fear the Lord, how to serve the Lord by the precepts of man. You know, greatly paraphrasing. But nonetheless, we understand what it means to cry. We got to shout loudly, utter. We got to shout, beg, weep, sob for the Most High to hear us. But for now, let's go to Genesis chapter 4, verse 26. Genesis chapter 4, verse 26. And it reads, you know what, I'll start at 25. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For God said, she, have appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew, and to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began men to call upon the name of the Lord. So it was after Seth was born that men started to call upon the name of the Lord. You see that? It dates all the way back to Genesis, the beginning. That's what the word Genesis means, the beginning. After Seth, when men began to call on the name of the Lord. You see that? Even to this day, we're supposed to be calling on the Lord. Understand that. Let's go to, matter of fact, let's go to Exodus chapter 4, verse 22. Exodus chapter 4, verse 22. And it reads, and thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. You see that? So this is Moses being commanded by the Most High to go to Pharaoh and tell him, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. So when you read the scriptures, you understand that the Most High is only dealing with the nation of Israel. We are here considered to be his son, you know. So he said we are his children, sons. We are the sons of God. So like we were going over earlier, the Father said, in your time of trouble, call. In your time of distress, and I will hear and deliver thee. So he's letting us know right here that we are the sons of God. We are his firstborn. Understand that. So by being the firstborn, we are his children, and he is our heavenly Father. You know, and when we cry out, he will hear us, just as a good father will, and be ready to save and protect us. Understand that. But for now, let's go to John 9:31. But in order for him to hear us, we have to be doing something. We as a nation of people have to be doing something. Individually, we have to be doing something. Let's get there. John chapter 9, verse 31. The book of John chapter 9, verse 31. This is one that we bring out quite a bit to let our brothers and sisters know that when we sin, the Most High does not hear us. The book of John chapter 9, verse 31. It says, now we know that God heareth not sinners. But if any man be a worshiper of God and doeth his will, him he heareth. So sin, to put it in a nutshell, is breaking the Most High's commandments. When we break the commandments, we are in sin. It's that simple. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. It is what it is. You break the commandment, you're in sin. You're breaking the law. So we read right here in John 9:31. Now we know that God heareth not sinners. So when we breaking the commandments, the Lord is not hearing our cries. When we in distress, he's not hearing us if we constantly in sin, in iniquity. But if any man be a worshiper of God and doeth his will, him he heareth. You see that? When we keep the commandments and we do his will, do what we were created to do, what he intended for us to do, then he will hear our cries in our time of distress, during our trials and tribulation. Even when we seek things that we want to strive to obtain, to accomplish goals, to build, to expand, to be better all the way around, individually, as a family, as a nation, you know, to destroy our nation. I mean, not our nation, but our enemies. We have to be keeping his commandments for him to listen to our requests. You know, it's that simple, it's that plain. Understand that. But from there, let's go to 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. These are basic scriptures that we bring out quite a bit. But I'm bringing them out to show our brothers and sisters that you have to cry out to the Lord. Cry out unto him in your time of affliction. And it's written all throughout the scriptures. I just brought out a few verses earlier, but I'm going to bring another one out right quick just to show you. This is the book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 7, verse 14. It says, if my people, not all, but my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Most of our people don't even know how to pray. They don't know that they should pray. They don't know how to seek the Most High's face. They don't even know that they're in wickedness to even be able to turn away from, you know. But this is the whole purpose as to why we do these classes. You sick, having insecure thoughts in your mind, you know, you're worried about the future, how you going to pay your bills, how you going to deal with your enemy. Cry out unto the Lord. Humble yourself. It starts by repenting and giving supplication, meaning opening your mouth and admitting your faults. But in order to know what your faults are, you have to open up the scriptures and read. That's one thing that our people hate to do. Even though they know the valuable information that's inside the Bible, they refuse to read. We, as a nation of people, have to wake up and open the Bible and read. It's our history book. It's our instruction manual. It's our guidance to live in a perfect and long life, a prolonged life. But if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves, pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sin and heal their land. I don't know about you, but we need our sins to be forgiven. We need to be heard from heaven. We need to be healed as a nation and restored back to our land. Because we in a downtrodden position as a nation of people right now. And I'm ready to go, just like many of my brothers and sisters of the nation of Israel who have woken up to this truth. We ready to go. There's nothing here for us. Nothing but oppression. From there, let's go to 1 Kings chapter 17. I'll give you an example of one of the testimonies that's actually in the scriptures to show you how you're supposed to call on the Lord. And when you believe in him and his works, you'll see it come to pass. We're going to go to the book of 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 17. 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 17. And this is going into the brother Elijah. All right, one of our prophets, Elijah. It says, and it came to pass that after these things, that the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, fell sick. So her son fell sick, and his sickness was so sore that there was no breath left in him. Kind of remind me of what just happened a couple years ago around the world. Lack of breath, sickness, can't breathe. But we're going to keep reading. Verse 18. And she said unto Elijah, what have I to do with thee, O thou man of God? Art thou come unto me to call my son, my sin to remembrance, and to slay my son? And he said unto her, give me thy son. And he took him out of her bosom and carried him up into a loft, where he abode, and laid him upon his own bed. So this woman's son was dying, dead, and she basically going to Elijah saying, did you come to call my sin so that you can slay my son? So Elijah took her son and he went upstairs, basically, went up to a loft. Verse 20, and it said, and he cried unto the Lord and said, O Lord, my God, hast thou also brought evil upon the widow with whom I sojourn by slaying her son? So he asking the Lord a question, but he crying out. And he stretched himself upon the child 3 times, and cried unto the Lord once again, and said, O Lord, my God, I pray thee, let this child's soul come into him again. And the Lord heard the voice of Elijah. Why did he hear Elijah? Because Elijah was a righteous brother. Elijah was an obedient brother, a humble, a meek brother who followed the commandments, did as the Most High commanded him. And the soul of the child came into him again, and he revived. That's why it's that much more important for our brothers and sisters to read, because we find out these key details and facts that we are supposed to be applying to our lives today. Now, are we on the same level with Elijah? No. But can we not get the services of the Most High? That's one of the promises that's guaranteed to us. Only the nation of Israel. You know? But the point being, in this situation, Elijah knew, because it was going on since the beginning of time, since Genesis, after Seth, that men began to call upon the name of the Lord. So when this child was sick and died, Elijah cried out to the Lord for this child to be revived again. You see that? I'm going to read 22 again. And it says, and the Lord heard the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came into him again, and he revived. You see that? There's multiple occasions throughout the scriptures that we learn about through reading that our prophets, our forefathers, were able to bring life back into individuals who passed, who were asleep, whose spirits left them. You see that? That's why it's important for us to read. Verse 23. And Elijah took the child and brought him down out of the chamber into the house and delivered him unto his mother. And Elijah said, see, thy son liveth. And the woman said unto Elijah, now by this I know that thou art a man of God, and that the word of the Lord is in thy mouth. In thy mouth is truth. You see that? So those things were made manifest to show and magnify the word of Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua and the power, the belief, the faith. Understand that. That is why we must do these things. We must read the scriptures to find out what we must do in our times of trouble. You see, they talking about the dollar getting ready to crash, the economy getting ready to crash, famines on the brink, chaos from different natural disasters, earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, storms touching down everywhere. What should you be doing in these times? Still depending on the knowledge that or the wisdom that Esau has given you? Or should you be calling on the name of the Lord? Should you be reading and building your spirit up? Adding those precepts into your mind so you know what to do in your times of tribulation. When it starts to hit the fan, if you know what I mean. You know? But for now, let's go to the book of Susanna, the history of Susanna. I'm going to show you another instance. Show you another instance right quick. A sister knowing what she was supposed to do in a time of trouble. Go to the book of History of Susanna, chapter 1, verse 34. It says, then the two elders stood up in the midst of the people and laid their hands upon her head. All right, because this woman, Susanna, was basically being accused of committing adultery, fornication with the man because the two elders wanted to sleep with her and she wasn't willing to perform those acts. And they said, well, because you don't want to do that, we're going to say that you were laying with another man and had you put to death. She was basically being putting them between a rock and a hard spot. You know, a lot of our people, when they get put in those situations, they fold. And this is a testimony on how we are supposed to deal in those situations. Rather than give in or lean on our own understanding, we have to go back and read the testimonies so that we know how to deal, how to move. All right, I'm going to read it again. Susanna, the history of Susanna, chapter 1, verse 34. It reads, then the two elders stood up in the midst of the people and laid their hands upon her head. Upon her head. And she, weeping, looked up towards heaven, for her heart trusted in the Lord. And the elder said, as we walked in the garden alone, this woman came in with two maids and shut the garden doors and sent the maids away. Then a young man who there was hid came unto her and lay with her. Then we that stood in a corner of the garden, seeing this wickedness, ran unto them. And when she saw them together, the man we could not hold, for he was stronger than we, and opened the door and leaped out. But having taken this woman, we asked who the young man was, but she would not tell us. These things do we testify. Then the assembly, meaning the congregation, the people, the jury, the people that were listening, believed them, and those that were the elders and judges of the people. So they condemned her to death. Then Susanna cried out with a loud voice and said, O everlasting God that knowest the secrets and knowest all things before thee, before they be. Thou knowest that they have borne false witness against me. And behold, I must die. Whereas I never did such things as these men have maliciously invented against me. And the Lord heard her voice. You see that? This woman knew what she was supposed to do in a time in her distress, in a time of trial and tribulation. Go back to 42. It said, then Susanna cried out with a loud voice and said, so she wasn't sitting there sobbing, wiping her eyes. She cried out to the Lord, just like she was supposed to. Why? Because it's commanded for us to do these things. She cried out with a loud voice and said, O everlasting God that knowest the secrets and knowest all things before they be. Thou knowest that they have borne false witness against me. And behold, I must die for this? Whereas I never did such things. And these men have maliciously invented against me. And the Lord heard her voice. Therefore, when she was led to be put to death, the Lord raised up the Holy Spirit of a young youth, whose name was Daniel. You see that? I'm not going to get into the rest of the story, but it's a nice read. I encourage you, brothers and sisters, to read the history of Susanna. It's in the Apocrypha. But this is another sister who knew what she was supposed to do in a time of trouble. And the Lord heard her voice and raised up the spirit in young Daniel. This is when he started coming into his fame, to be known. Now, how did that sister know these things? It tells you at the very beginning of the book, of the chapter. Let's go back to the history of Susanna, chapter 1, verse 1. It said, there dwelt a man in Babylon called Joachim, and he took a wife whose name was Susanna, the daughter of Chelsea, a very fair woman, meaning a very beautiful woman, and one that feared the Lord. So she feared the Lord. It said her parents also were righteous. We'll get to what righteous means in a second. But it said her parents also were righteous and taught their daughter according to the law of Moses. You see that? So Susanna learned how to keep the commandments. She knew what she was supposed to do in a time of trouble, in a time of need. In her distress, she cried out to the Lord, and she was saved. Why? Because her parents told her what she was supposed to do. Now, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 4 and 6. No, that's not what I want. 6 and 25, excuse me. I'll go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 25. Find out what righteousness is. Book of Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 25. And it reads, and it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before the Lord our God, as he have commanded us. So to be righteous is to keep the commandments. It's that simple. It's that plain. Just like to be in sin is to break the commandments. You break the commandments, you're in sin. To keep the commandments, you're a righteous individual. It's that plain. But now her parents taught her from a youth. Now, if anybody knows anything about that, then you would understand that they were keeping the commandments as well. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 1. It said, now these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which the Lord your God commanded to teach you, that you might do them in the land whither you will go to possess it. All right. That thou mightest fear the Lord thy God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I commanded thee, thou and thy son and thy son's sons, all the days of thy life, and that thy days may be prolonged. So you learn by keeping these commandments, you live longer lives. All right. It don't matter how much money you got, because you see our celebrities, Michael Jackson, Bernie Mac, and several other individuals dying at young ages. Got all the money and fame in the world. That does not prolong your days. Keeping the commandments prolongs your days. Remember that. So we're going to jump down to verse 7, and it reads, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. So we're supposed to be teaching our children. They knew these things. They were supposed to teach her day in and day out, all throughout the day, about keeping the commandments, about the testimonies, about what we as a nation of people were supposed to be doing. These things were being taught, commanded, and it's still commanded to be done today. So even if you're up in age and you don't understand and you didn't know at the time, now you have an opportunity to go back and read and understand and still continue to teach. Just because you didn't do it at one point in time does not mean that it's over, that you don't have to learn and teach it. Now you have an understanding. But if you reject that, you're even in more trouble. But now you have an understanding. Now you have a responsibility. So and that much more important for you to learn, apply, and teach even today. That's the solution to our problems. We don't teach what's needed, but this is a commandment for us to do these things. So even if we might not be eating the foods, we dress in the right way, we keeping the Sabbath, but if we are not teaching our children diligently, day in and day out about these commandments, guess what, my brothers and sisters? You are in sin. It's that simple. But going back, let's go to Exodus chapter 2, verse 23. Like I said, today's class is called Cry Out Unto the Lord. In your time of trouble, time of need. Let's go to Exodus chapter 2, verse 23. Because the Lord heard our cry as a nation of people. Exodus chapter 2, verse 23. And it reads, and it came to pass in process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of bondage. And they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of their bondage. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them. You will not read nowhere else in the Bible where the Most High had respect on any other nation of people. Only the nation of Israel. And my brothers and sisters of the nation of Israel, stop fighting, trying to include everybody else into what's promised to you. Stop looking out for the so-called white man, the Chinese, the Japanese, the East Indian, the Arab. It's not promised to them. The Lord don't have respect to them. Only the children of Israel. You have been duped, beguiled, tricked, lied to by these other nations to making you believe that they have some type of salvation. They do not. We as a nation of people are the only ones going through these conditions. We are the only nation that's suffering right now. So it's best that we find out what we are supposed to do and act upon, rather than trying to reject it and trying to bring everybody else into the fold. Bringing everybody else into the fold is not going to help your condition today. You've been trying to do that for so long and it ain't changed nothing. Wake up, Israel. From there, let's go to Proverbs chapter 15. Proverbs chapter 15. Where we at? Proverbs chapter 15. Verse 29. Proverbs 15, verse 29. And it reads, the Lord is far from the wicked, but he heareth the prayer of the righteous. So the Lord ain't dealing with the wicked. Esau's the most wicked. You can read about that in Obadiah. You can read about that in Malachi and various other books. Isaiah, Jeremiah. The Lord ain't dealing with them. Amos. They are the most wicked. I'm going to read that again. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 29 said the Lord is far from the wicked, meaning he is not dealing with them. Everything that they have today, they have been given by the spiritual demon, Satan. He gives them the knowledge, the ability to rule and do these things. You can read about that once again in Job 9 and 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Why? Because we, as a nation of people, don't want to keep the commandments. You can read about that in Psalms 82 and 5. How the course of the earth is out of order. Because we don't know who we are. We walking around in darkness. Therefore, everything is flipped upside down. So we got to understand that when we in wickedness, breaking the commandments, doing evil and wicked deeds, having wicked and evil thoughts, that the Lord ain't dealing with us. He's far from us. But when we keep the commandments being righteous, he hears our prayers, he hears our cries. And he is there to fight for us, not against us. From there, let's go to Job 27 and 8. Book of Job, chapter 27, verse 8. And it reads, for what is the hope of the hypocrite? what is the hope of the hypocrite, though we have gain when God taketh away his soul? So I brought that out to ask a question. A hypocrite is somebody that's wicked, saying one thing and does the other. And then when he cry out to the Lord, his hope, will he be heard? Let me read it again. For what is the hope of the hypocrite, though we have gain when God taketh away his soul? What are you going to gain from that? You misleading people. You're a stumbling block. When God taketh away your soul, what's your hope? What are you hoping for? Vainglory, foolishness, wickedness. Matter of fact, let me get the next verse. It said, will God hear his cry when trouble cometh upon him? No. Why? Because he's doing the complete opposite of what he's supposed to be doing. Just like the Sadducees and Pharisees that you read about in the New Testament. They teaching the people to follow the law, but they ain't doing it. So when they cry out to the Most High, do you think they hearing them? Or when they cry to the Most High, will he hear their cries? No. Because they doing evil and wicked deeds, seeking vainglory, that preeminence. They will not get what they're looking for. Let's go to the book of Job 35 and 2. Job 35 and 2. Or 12, excuse me. Book of Job, chapter 35, verse 12. There they cry, but none giveth answer because of the pride of evil men. You see that? The hypocrites, the evil men, they cry when they going through tough times, because every man is going to go through tough times when they come out of the womb. You know, everybody is dealt with. Matter of fact, no, I'm not going to get that. As a base, I'm going to just paraphrase this. Sirach 39 and 1. Great travail is made for every man that come out of the womb. You know, but it says, they that cry, but none giveth answer because of the pride of evil men. So a lot of men, women going to be crying to the Lord, but because of their pride, their evilness, the Lord ain't dealing with them. You see, verse 13 says, surely God will not hear vanity, neither will the Almighty regard it. He ain't listening to that foolishness. You know, let's go to the book of Sirach, or Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 12 right quick. Show you about that pride. What is pride? Most of the time, the Bible defines itself. But we're going to show you right quick. Sirach, or Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 12. And it reads, the beginning of pride is when one departed from God. So an evil man that's full of pride, he has departed from God, meaning he ain't trying to hear or do anything that's commanded of him by God, by Yahweh, by Shem Yahushua. I'm going to read it again. The beginning of pride is when one departed from God and his heart is turned away from his maker. See that? His heart, meaning his mind, is turned away from his maker. I did this. I did this on my own. I made this. Because of me, this happened. That's the pride of Esau. There's various scriptures going into how he is a very prideful individual, or a nation of people. And the Bible describes them to a T. These are the same individuals who will interrupt your conversation, just walk up, see you talking to somebody else, just walk up and start spewing their information. Same people, when you tell them no, they're going to try to do it anyway. You know, when you come crying out to them, they don't hear you, but they think they're doing you a favor. You know, they set themselves up to be as the Most High, you know, in his mind thinking, who going to see me? Who going to bring me down? But this ain't just predicated on showing you the characteristics of Esau, this is also the mindset of some of our own brothers and sisters. You know, they get a little piece of paper, a degree, they can't be told anything. They get a little money in the bank, they can't be told anything. They get a nice car, or they're in a neighborhood where they finally want to live at, they can't be told anything. The beginning of pride is when one departed from God. You can open the Bible and read word for word to them, and they can't understand it. They have departed from God. Their hearts are turned away from him. Even though they have a form of godliness, they never fully able to come to the understanding of the truth. You know, pride will reject your cries from being heard. You know, let's go to Isaiah 59:1. I got a few more precepts and I'm going to end it. I'm going to go to Isaiah chapter 59, verse 1. And it reads, Behold, the Lord's hand is not shortened, that it cannot save, neither his ear heavy, that it cannot hear. These are some of the key things that we must understand when we read the scriptures about our God. His hand is not shortened, that he cannot save, neither is his ear heavy where he cannot hear. So that's why it's important for us to cry out unto the Lord in our times of stress, even in our times of joyfulness. Cry out to the Lord at all times, but most importantly in your time of distress. When you're sick, you don't know what to do, lost a loved one, calamities, cry out to the Lord. He see all, he know what's going on, but he put these things in the instruction manual to help you so that you know how to solve your problems. But if you neglect to read the instruction, then you're going to suffer for the consequences, or you're going to suffer the consequences for your neglect, you know. But for now, let's go to Zechariah chapter 13, verse 9. Show you something else right quick. Just another tidbit to show our people how we must deal in the last days. Zechariah chapter 13, verse 9. And it reads, And I will bring the third part through the fire. Let me see, is that one I want to start? I'll start at verse 8. Zechariah 13:8. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. So what is that talking about right there? That's talking about the nation of Israel. 2/3 of our people will be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. I mean, it's going to be a small remnant, 1/3 of our people. And it says, I will bring that third through, let me read it again. And I will bring the third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people. And they shall say, the Lord is my God. You see that? So it's only going to be a small remnant of our people that's going to wake up to this truth and understand it and put in the work. And it's going to be that small remnant of people that will be tried and purified just like silver and gold. That same small remnant will be the same ones when they cry out to the Lord for being repentant Israelites and coming back to keeping the commandments and having a faith in Yahweh, that we will be heard. Our cries will be heard. And the Lord will hear us and say, this is my people calling me. My righteous brothers and sisters who are down there striving day in and day out, rehearsing the righteous acts, striving to do the things that I told them to do. I will hear them. I will hear their cries. Matter of fact, let's go to Sirach, chapter 2. The book of Sirach or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 2. I think verse 10. And this is one of the things, just like Romans 15:4 tells us, that everything that is written for our learning. Everything that is written for our learning. And through patience of the scripture, we'll have hope. So this is a precept to go with it. It's Sirach or Ecclesiasticus chapter 2, verse 10. And it reads, look at the generations of old and see, did ever any trust in the Lord and was confounded? Or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken? Or whom did he ever despise that called upon him? You see that? So we got to look through the scriptures, starting at Genesis all the way to Revelation, and see, did anybody who ever was dealing with the Lord, when they called upon him, did he not save them? Did he not give them answer? Did he not send judges, saviors, angels to help? That's what the scriptures are about. That builds our faith. That gives us hope. That builds up our faith in him. And it builds up our spirit at the same time. So we got to look at the generations of old. Not just listening to what Esau got to say. We need to be searching out what the Lord said, our creator said that we should do in order for things to turn out the way we need them to turn out. But this is my last scripture. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. And it reads, there have no temptation taken you, but such as common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. So I brought this scripture out to show you that nothing that you're going to go through is anything more that is common to man. Everybody's not going to go through the same thing, but we done went through damn near the same thing as a nation of people. We all will experience the loss of loved one, death, hurt, pain, anguish, losing, winning. We will lose. We will all experience these things. But the Lord will not suffer us to be tempted above the things that we are able to deal with. But will, with the temptation, make a way to escape. And just like you've seen with the history of Susanna, when she was put in a situation with her back up against the wall, she knew what her way of escape was, crying out to the Lord in her distress. So that's one of the ways to escape the madness, the chaos of this wicked kingdom that we dwell in today. And we must embed that in our minds so that we understand in our times of trouble, we must cry out to the Lord. But in order to be heard, we must keep the commandments. We must have faith in the Lord through Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. So with that, I pray and hope that your brothers and sisters were edified, you learned something, and that you will be able to teach your brothers and sisters on down the road. And Lord willing, build up your nation of people, you know. But on that, I'm your brother Ananias for A.O.I, the Awakening of Israel. It's been another Savory Sunday, and I hope and pray that you were edified in the spirit, uplifted, and I say shalom to you. Peace and greetings, my brother. Much love. I'm out.